What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. This is Dan Giffen. Today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Keeley. She produces under the name Dresage. She's a Los Angeles-based producer, and she's worked with some amazing artists, including some of my favorites like Jai Wolf and Big Gigantic, Illenium. And she's had a lot of awesome sync music placements, including commercials and spots with Apple, Windex, the Baywatch movie, a Wrinkle in Time trailer for Disney. She also recently helped score the new Hulu film called My Valentine. And I could probably keep going on and on about her credentials. She's a really cool producer based in Los Angeles, and she produces a jazzy, indie, pop, dreamy kind of genre. We're going to listen to one of her newest songs called Holy in a second. Before we dive into today's episode, real quick, I want to let you know I made a bunch of Ableton Live mixing cheat sheets that I want to give you for free because free is great. If you struggle to improve the quality of your tracks, or you feel like when you compare your mixes to other mixes, it just sounds like crap, and you want to step up the quality of your mixing game using Ableton Live's devices and tools and workflows, I created 5 mixing cheat sheets that I'd like to give you, talking about stereo image and panning, saturation, reverb, compression, EQ, all these good things using Live's devices. And you can grab those for free. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/mixing cheat sheet, and you can pop in your email and download those for free. So enjoy those. I've got an Ableton Live mixing course I'm working on that's coming in early August 2020. Stay tuned for that. There'll be more info on it. But yeah, liveproducersonline.com/mixing cheat sheet. Grab it for free. So we're going to actually start off this episode listening to our podcast guest Dresage's newest single called Holy. It's really dope. So let's check that out, and then we'll dive into today's episode. I have an awesome guest with me today. Her name is Keeley. She's a singer-songwriter and produces under the name Dresage. She's based in Los Angeles. She creates like a spacey, jazzy, indie pop kind of music. It's really unique. I'm a big fan. We've had a lot of really dope female producers on this podcast, and she is no exception for sure. She creates and teaches different videos and tutorials, sharing many aspects of music production and her workflow. Especially lately, I've been digging it. I follow you on the Instagram and all the other places. So yeah, thanks for joining today. This is going to be fun.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Absolutely. A couple days ago, I saw on the gram you posted that you were doing a mixing while producing masterclass type of thing.
Yeah, I did one so I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and there's this really exciting initiative at their Valencia, Spain campus. There's these women who are just badasses, and they're called She Knows Tech, and they're really active in different kinds, and they're master's students, I think, getting their master's degrees and fellowships. They're doing all these cool online tutorial programs, and
Nice.
This was with the college in Valencia, and so breaking down how production today is super intertwined with mixing, and I'm a mixing engineer, you have done all the creative work pretty much already if you're producing it.
Right.
And so that was cool because I think that those two things, especially in like any kind of electronic idiom of music, they're kind of really becoming the same thing. So it was really fun. I taught it at like 7:20 a.m.
Oh,
LA
wow.
because it was the end of their day in Spain. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a good teacher, but I'm trying.
Yeah. A lot of coffee
Yeah.
and waking up in the morning. Yeah.
Eyes wide. I mean, like, I'm awake. That's
Yeah.
fine. I'm fine.
I'm still working on becoming a morning person. Struggle can be real. It can be so real for a lot of music producers who are like bats late at night.
I know. I've convinced myself to be like a daytime producer, but I secretly think that I would actually be more productive at night. I just like, because I feel like
Mhm.
I like waste so much time all day. I'm just like, oh, like this synth line is cool. How else can I stare at it and adjust it? And like, I don't know. So maybe I need to try being a bat.
Yeah, maybe try it. I mean, that's been my life and I'm pretty happy with it. Although there is something about like waking up extra early in the morning, like before the sun comes up, it just makes you feel productive. You don't even have to do anything. I feel like just waking up early makes you feel like you're accomplishing things.
Yes. And but how much of that is like society? I don't know. I have to really these days, especially, I have to like really break down what is like. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it. What
Let's
is
do
like
it.
society informing my self-worth by way of like my productivity, especially right now? It's like I think a lot of people are examining like their held beliefs and like what
Hmm.
anything means. And so yeah, I have to check myself on that a lot because I'm like, what is productive's great, but like what does it actually mean? And like what if I weren't productive today? Am I still like a good person? I think so, but some
Right.
I've been like programmed to think like it's like life is just like a bunch of check marks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, I think the whole balance of life and ideologies and perspectives are being shifted around so much just because people's lifestyles have been changed so drastically in so many different areas. Like, I understand what you're saying with that because, like, for me, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, how am I focusing my time to be productive in ways that I want to be productive and be able to accomplish things that I feel like need to be accomplished despite whatever else is going on in the world so I can do this and reach these goals. And there's
Right.
a lot of changes going on.
It's a weird one, but I don't know. I think overall it could be a good thing for us to the people who are willing to look inward and like really assess what is important and what's not.
Totally. I feel that. Well, let's get to know you a little bit better. Let's talk about like how did you get started making music? Obviously, like you're crushing it. You're releasing great tracks. Your most recent track is Holy, which was inspired from that four producers flip one sample. Andrew Wong was on the podcast many, many moons ago, and it was a great one. And yeah, that was when did that happen? When was that flip?
I think that came out I think it came out like March or April. Like
Okay. Yeah, it's been a minute, I thought. And then Holy was your recent one released, and that was released shortly after.
I have a really that was the track that I built for like my what I made from that episode, and I
Right.
wasn't planning on even like finishing it, let alone releasing it.
Okay.
Um, because it's only like I don't know, like a 2 minute, 1 to 2 minute like clip that he plays in the episode, and I was like, cool, like people will see that, I guess. And then he like hit me up before he was gonna release it, and he was like, I think you should make this a full song. Like you should just do it, and you should put it up, and we can like put it up on SoundCloud or whatever. I was like,
I agree. I'm glad you did, because actually that's my favorite song that you've released so far. So,
okay. One of my faves too, actually, because I think that I really pushed myself because I was, I knew that like in that episode I was going to be most likely the only one like creating a song and like a song form and expressing vocally and lyrically like that. So I worked really hard on it, but also it felt really exciting because I was able to come back. Like I think I made that last summer, maybe like a year ago at this point, and then the episode didn't air until the following spring. So it was kind of cool to have this like half song, and this is kind of how I work a lot. I'll have a song that's like pretty fleshed out ideas, but it's not a full song. Finish it and like make the production better, and it's cool because it's sort of like you're like, oh, this is an interesting choice I made. Okay, I'm going to make this better. And like, oh, I learned from this thing. And like,
totally. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people listening to this podcast have massive archives full of like 20 to 50% finished songs that may never actually release into the world. But
Hard.
but so how did you get started with music? Like let's backtrack a little bit and time travel.
So I grew up in Northwest Washington State. It's a little town called Bellingham. It's like halfway between Vancouver, Canada, and Seattle. Um,
Nice. That's a beautiful area up there.
Now living in California, I like can't handle rain, so I specifically only go there in the summers now because I'm like it's beautiful, but
It's
like
because it's mostly like acid rain, isn't it? Because it's all dirty, polluted rain.
it just rains so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an exaggeration. And I don't know. You know, you grow up and you just like deal with it. You're like it's just this is what life is, and then you move away
Yeah.
and you're like, wait, I don't have to be depressed half of the year. Okay.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, I grew up there. I guess like my first musical kind of thing was playing. Well, I guess I started to learn piano when I was a kid, and then did flute, and I was very into Celtic flute for a minute.
Celtic flute. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like
Nice.
it was a scene up there. I don't know. There's like an interesting tie with like hippie liberal culture and like Celtic music for some reason. So
Right on. Yeah.
um, and then yeah, I started, I guess that was like maybe around middle school. I sort of started getting more into choir, and then in high school continued that, and discovered like jazz essentially. And I think that's when a lot of high schoolers or, you know, a lot of kids start to like really, if they're going to go be serious and go to music school or whatever, they like discover jazz at some point.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really fell in love with like, I think the first thing that really like opened my eyes was the duets records by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
Oh yeah, like these amazing, you know, all the American Songbook, all the standards, and them just doing it
Yeah.
their masterful ways. So yeah, so I did that, and then there was kind of some like musical theater stuff that was surging the love of performing and getting like the energy exchange with a crowd. Realizing that and I'd always done other things in music, but kind of like towards the second half of high school, it became quite a focus for me. So I guess I was just like, I want to be a jazz singer. And I found Berklee College of Music in Boston. And I was like, I guess I'll go here. Like, this sounds pretty cool. And so I applied and I got in and got a scholarship. Um,
Nice.
and I got there and I truly thought that I was going to like study jazz vocals only. And to be honest, I'm so grateful I didn't, because I don't think I'd have a career now if I just focused on that.
Yeah.
Love it, but there, you know, so I ended up like at the first few semesters, as all my friends were going out parties and things like that, I was starting to like play around with GarageBand in the practice rooms alone, and I was like making these weird crossover like jazz standard, but like very influenced by Fiona Apple type songs.
Nice.
um, they were something.
That sounds original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of where I started realizing like, I think I want to have the skills of recording myself. And it's never been as like wanting to work as an engineer in a studio, wanting to like necessarily produce other artists. It's always been as like, I want this to be an extension of my ability and my sound and my voice as an artist. And so that's really served me. So I studied music production and engineering there. And yeah, that's kind of where I guess I got started, but
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, Berkeley's no joke. We've had a handful of people on the podcast that have been there at least at some point. I also know the graduation rate there is very low because
Was
it's
it actually got
intense.
better when I started. I think I started in 2006. I was there 2006 to 2010. And so, yeah, as I was getting there, that was like sort of its reputation. But then like, I
Yeah.
think it's gotten better since, because it's become, I don't know, it's become more competitive for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great school and they've got some brilliant minds teaching a lot of the classes there, and like really great networking opportunities, just people meeting other artists who are like a higher caliber of skills. So I'm sure it was cool. I mean, maybe you just stayed really inspired there, meeting a lot of people.
I mean, you are immediately humbled the second you get to a situation like that, because like
Yeah.
I was like, I'm like one of the only singers in my school. I'm the best one for sure. And then I go
Right.
there.
You're like, nope, not anymore. That changed.
I think that's really healthy for kids who, it's a small fish, big pond kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that's a real shock of the real world. And even for sure, post college, like college, you think it's the real world, but it's 100% not. And then you get
Yeah,
in the music industry and you're completely starting over. Being humble, being bad is great because I think it builds longevity and it builds like ambition, which is super necessary for people wanting to be around you and work with you.
totally. When you're around that higher standard, it like forces you to have a higher level of excellence, and just constantly learning and being in a humble place to learn is always important. I think I'm still a student, even though you're teaching, I'm teaching. We're always learning until we die.
Like that's like one of the beautiful parts of where we are in society now is like you can learn anything online. You can also tailor it to be your own take and your own creative version of that thing. It's I don't know. I think it's really helpful for kind of knocking down the accessibility for people because it's all
Totally. Yeah, well, let's talk about like some nerdy Ableton music production stuff. And I know you've been teaching, like we just talked about that masterclass you did and stuff. How did you get started in Ableton? Like, where did you shift out of that garage band late night at the Berkeley College just into getting into Ableton stuff?
well. I throughout school I was studying pretty much only Pro Tools was taught there because we had like it was great. We had access to whole like SSL consoles and analog studios. So
Nice.
it was kind of before like the really deep in the box era that we're in now. Pro Tools was used as just like a way to get, from the console into digital, like converting into digital audio and getting it um, multi-track recorded. Because a lot of what we learned in school was all like capturing live instruments, and it wasn't really automating within a workstation.
Right.
For I don't know, maybe the first like 5 or 6 years of LA here for me, I was doing mostly like vocal work for hire stuff. And I still will record in Pro Tools, but I transitioned from Pro Tools to Ableton when I got more serious about producing because it just felt so much more creative to me. And it felt like all of those rules that I had internalized, the like, you need to do this before this, and like all that kind of old school stuff that is a good basis for education, but also
Hmm.
like true creativity and innovation.
And we all know Pro Tools was not made with MIDI in mind. It's just a fact. Let's just say it. Yeah.
So, so yeah, as my productions definitely moved more into the MIDI lane, definitely moved more into like intense automation and like wanting to do that stuff quickly. Ableton felt like much more of a canvas to me than like a just I don't know. Pro Tools just doesn't feel that way to
It's
me.
a whole new world of possibilities. Yeah.
It's really inspiring. So honestly, I think I've been working in Ableton for maybe like 3 years at this point, but because I
Cool.
had foundation in Pro Tools already, a lot of it was just like transferring, the same concepts and then being like, wait, I can do this in this? Okay.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the same with me when I started in GarageBand, it was a lot easier to transfer over to a new DAW because once you have like the basics down, it's easy to just start to pick up new things. Cool. So, I know that you kind of did a deep dive on YouTube, and I'm actually going to include that link to your Holy song that we briefly discussed with the four producers slip one sample. I'm going to include that tutorial video of how you break down that song in the show notes of this episode. So, for anybody listening, go check that out in the description after this episode, and you can watch that whole walkthrough. But I think you had some really good tips with like your vocal processing. You're obviously a vocalist. At the beginning of this episode, we listened to a brief like snippet of it, and I just kind of want to get your take on like how you process and work with your vocals because you did a really awesome breakdown. You shared some of your tools, microphones, things like that. So I'd love to just talk about that briefly, and I think that could be helpful for a lot of listeners that are processing vocals. Like, what does that look like? And maybe you can share what you did with some of that tutorial video as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that it's interesting. You don't see, I mean, now you're starting to see obviously more women in this field, and a lot of women, not all, but like a lot of women come from a vocal background as well. So I think it's like a really um, like as a singer, my brain works in a way of arranging harmonies. So when I'm producing, this is what I reach for, and these are the textures that I reach for. And I find that a lot of singers have a really amazing ear for like thinking of vocals in terms of space and, meaning like panning and like spatial effects like delay and reverb, but then also like how many layers you're going to do, because 2 layers versus 4 layers of a single part is going to sound different. It's going to have a different effect.
Mm-hmm.
And singing is so human based and emotion based. I think that once you can transition like the vocal mind into those just being extensions of being a vocalist and being an arranger, you can really start to like play with the palette of recording and panning and producing and making all these different effects and processes of a vocal, sort of like, and this is what I say in the breakdown a lot, is like, how am I going to impact the listener with the lyric, and how am I going to like dress up the way I sing, how many layers I sing, where I put them in the field, the left and right field, and how that is essentially like serving the song. Like that's kind of like my highest thing that I'm thinking of all times when people are producing,
Mm-hmm.
So something that I will do a lot is play with the juxtaposition of dry and wet, and bringing those, whether it's like a crazy delay for a moment or a really lush, beautiful, dreamy reverb that I am then side chaining to the kick, is creating different moments in the song with different effects on the vocal based on like what world you want to create in each section.
Cool.
Another part for sure is like layering. Like I call it a stack. So I will usually I guess it's the kind of like in choruses, but it really depends on what kind of song it is. But I'll do a lead vocal in the center, and then I'll do a wide pan left and right, double, triple performance.
Mm-hmm.
I usually will I'll usually do doubles of like every harmony line, and pan left and right, but varying degrees of like left and right. So I like to kind of create like super wide this, and then we kind of like start cascading in a little bit, so you can create this space of vocals that live in different parts of the stereo field too.
So like the same exact thing you're saying twice, but you're just like recording it 2 different takes, right? And then like spreading it 1 take left and 1 right to create that wave, like a Haas effect. Yeah.
Right. And you can also do that. You can choose that to be a specific moment. Whereas like I do this a lot where I want things to be really narrow, very small, very dry. And then for the chorus, I want it to like blow
Just
up.
Pop. Yeah.
Very spatial. And so that stuff is really exciting to me, because I think that the human voice is such a unique tool to, even if you're not singing lyrics, even if it's just like you're creating, I don't know, like a chordal instrument and you're putting it into simpler and you're playing your voice. I think it's such a unique human experience to hear a voice and then use it as a production flavor.
Totally. Yeah. One thing I thought that was really interesting in that tutorial video you shared was like you're automating even the auto tune for certain phrases and notes. And I see a lot of people who they'll slap auto tune on there. They'll just dial it in and let it go. But I mean, you already have a great voice and your tracks sound wonderful, but so you can nail a lot of those notes. You have a good ear for singing in key. You don't need a ton of vocal processing to hit those notes. But I see that even like you were sweetening certain phrases where like the vibe was there and you loved the pronunciation that you had with your words, but maybe the note was just needed cleaned up a little bit. So I was really like impressed with your attention to detail and how you were automating just auto-tuned for certain phrases, which sounded cool for sure.
Yeah, that's stylistic. Like, there's certainly, as we all know, like slap on the auto tune,
right?
Retune, fast retune.
Totally.
That's the whole thing. But, and also, like Melodyne absolutely does this as well. And you could interchange the way I talked about turning auto tune on and off in that way. But yeah, I like to, and as I was saying in that tutorial, like I think that the more if you're you're of a level of singing where you don't need to rely on auto tune, and you can probably get the notes with just enough practicing it and doing enough takes to where you're getting it into like the right placement in your mask in resonance of your face really is. And then like the breathing, it's kind of all connected. It's like this, I don't know. It's like this weird physical thing where I know that if I sing a song, if I sing a note a certain way and it feels this way in my body, it's most likely going to be in tune. And so I think that like that's only good to perfect. And if it's like a vocal that you're really trying to get to be like that. And then
Yeah.
when it, right, like we were saying, when the vibe is dope and when like the word, the way you said the word is cool, like, yeah, turn on autotune and help that little 3-note run, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Another thing you said in that video was like how you just spent thousands of hours of just practicing your like intonation and singing into a dry mic, where you would just like try to stylistically come up with how you said certain words and phrases and like the tonality of your voice. I've seen a lot of newer vocalists as they're getting into like music production where they like out of the box they're just like, I hate my voice, but they love to sing and they think their voice sounds great until they actually start singing into a microphone and hear it back. So I think that was interesting advice that you gave, just to like practice how you phrase all of your words over and over and over. Makes a huge difference, right?
Humbling. And I think that when most singers step into a studio for the first time and they hear their voice and they're like having their first experience with recorded vocal, they're like, oh my God. It's and like I said, staying humble is so good. And there are so many days where I'm like, oh my God, I sound so bad right now. Like I gotta walk away for a second. Like and there's things that affect that, you know, it's like what you ate that day, how you're feeling emotionally, like how much sleep you got, how much water you're drinking. So all it's like a very holistic, strange thing to be a vocalist and be recording every day and getting really, you know, used to capturing your voice.
Like don't eat a bunch of Taco Bell and get drunk while being sleep deprived and dehydrated before you go into a studio session. That's not going to create a great performance. Yeah. It's good advice.
Yeah, totally. Don't do that.
Right. It's good. It's good. What's your, I guess, vocal chain look like? If we can dive in a little deeper. You gave us some really good tips as far as like automating vocals, widening vocals, like creating these different patterns and training your voice to sound good. If you don't mind, like kind of some of your favorite plugins for building your own vocal chain that you use.
Well, in my studio, my like hardware vocal chain is my Manley reference cardioid microphone, which I've said before, and I'll say it again, is wonderful. It's definitely at a price point that is like once you're starting to get kind of serious and graduated. Like I think the mic that you could have before this is like literally an SM7 by Shure. It's like $400 and reliable.
Yeah. Michael Jackson used that microphone too. Yeah, it's a pretty famous one.
And that's what I tell a lot of people, especially who are like, I want to, like singers who are like, I want to learn how to start recording my voice, but like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money. I'm like, get an SM7. Like you will be fine until you're ready.
Amen.
So that's going through a Great River. So I have a API Lunchbox 500 series on my desk.
Nice.
That's going through a Great River 500 series pre. Have a model number on it. I think it's just the Great River. I'm not really sure what it's modeled after, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Neve or something. And then I have a Shadow Hills mono optograph compressor.
Ooh, Shadow Hills is no joke. I love them. They make amazing stuff.
And honestly, like I'm such a sucker, but I would just buy it because they're literally their pots and their knobs are like so big and beautiful, and they just
that aesthetic goes a long way.
Yeah, it's like all of the old, like, you know, the stuff that you see the Beatles recording on, where it's like things that knobs are like this big, and you're like, I want to turn it.
Right.
So mic, pre-compressor. I have an Apollo 8P that I use, so I have great access to the UA.
UA all day. I love their stuff. Huge fan.
Yeah, and then I think like that's. I'm lucky to have gotten to the point where I can afford those things to really make my mic vocal signal coming into my computer sound really good already. And specifically with this mic, it works for my voice really nicely. One of my favorite, I mean, I use like Pro Q3 all day by FabFilter for EQ. I love the 560 UAD API. I guess it's a graphic EQ. Yeah. Just the sliders.
Okay. I haven't played that yet.
It's great because it's just, you just have like, I don't know, however many frequency band choices, and it's like more. And so you can be, like you can use your ears a little more than like with the Pro Q is great because you can see everything happening, but it also like, I think there's a validity in taking away the visual aspect of what's happening.
Yes, totally. It's almost too pretty because you
Mhm.
look at it and then you just start want to playing with more frequencies, and you can just like dial in and catch the little resonant frequencies, and you just start pulling those little spikes down. You get lost in that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I really like the UA 1176 Rev 2, I think is, or no, what's it called? RE
The Rev A.
Rev A, that's what it is. Yeah, Rev
Yeah.
2. Um, yeah, I think that's a great, like, I use that on my vocals all the time.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Effects wise, I've really been liking the Valhalla delay recently.
Oh, yes. Yes. Valhalla is where it's at for reverb, delays.
And their supermassive is really also quite fun.
Yeah, that's like a weird Frankenstein mix of like all their plugins into one. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I also discovered this like interesting, it doesn't do that much, but this Waves plugin called the King's microphone. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, I have. I played with that once on some female vocal track a long time ago. I collabed with a friend, and I never used it after that, and I have no idea why, because it sounded amazing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's just a modeler of all of the different king and queens of England's like speaking microphones that they addressed their crowds with. So they're like super
Really?
sounding. Um,
I didn't
you
know
know,
that.
yeah, it's really interesting. So you can choose like Queen Elizabeth, like this one, and yeah, it's very cool. So
Does it give you like a British accent too? Like when you say, because that would be cool. That'd be awesome.
algorithm.
Should.
Yeah, so that's something that I found recently that I was like, this is useful for very few things, but really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also Little Ultra Boy I use all the time.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Sound Toys.
Yeah, Sound Toy stuff all day.
We love them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, those are, I would say that's like my general. Also, UA makes a really good flanger doubler by MXR that I love a lot. So if I want like
Okay.
fun effects that are, yeah, more like modulating effects, I'll go to that.
Nice. You got a lot of good toys. It's a lot of good. It's a great setup. Nice. Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. Like your productions, your mixing. Do you do your own mastering, or do you outsource that to somebody else?
Well, no, I don't. When I don't have to, I don't. If I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm hired to do like a commercial or something, I usually will just do all of it, all the stuff, and just like fake master it myself. Like I fake master because I was like, I don't even know if I'm putting this out, and then I was like, I guess I'm uploading it to Spotify.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, but usually I will hire. There's this great woman named Jet Galindo, and she masters out of the bakery, which is on the Sony lot in Culver City in LA. And she's amazing and has like this beautiful studio there. And so I'll usually hire her to master my stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I do master other people's stuff, but when it comes to my own music, when you hear it 6 billion times, it's nice to have another clean set of ears.
No, I don't mix my own records either because I mean, I print all of my things and like all of my effects and everything, but I will give it off to a friend to mix it because I just literally can't listen to it anymore. Like it's gotten too.
I feel that. It's like you start to hate it at some point when you hear it so many times.
Totally. And then you start to make really dumb decisions of like, oh, this is wrong. I'm going to re-record it. And it's like, don't touch it.
Yeah. One of my friends, Corey Miller, he's a platinum mastering engineer here in Indianapolis where I'm at. And he says like, if you play with it more than 3 times, like the same knob or something, and you still don't know what's up or down, just you're in a good place. Leave it, move on with life. You'll be happier later. That's kind of true. But okay, so let's talk about Ableton stuff. Do you have any favorite Ableton Live devices or even like some workflows and hacks that you can share with the listeners?
I love Wavetable. Oh my God, it's so great.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I feel like Wavetable is like that one stepchild that's just super talented in the family that nobody acknowledges. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome. And I feel like it doesn't get enough attention.
To me, it can do like a large amount of what Serum can do. And it's like, I don't know, I think it's awesome. It's visual in the way that Serum is. If I'm just like, I have some analog synths that if I'm not feeling lazy, I will for sure go and design a sound on. But also if it's like, you know, if I'm like on a gig where I'm like, I have to get this track submitted in 2 hours, I will just like straight up build all of my synths with Wavetable, and it's great.
Awesome. I respect that completely. That's cool.
Also, like the compressor, the side chain on that compressor is great. I use it all the time.
Yes.
I use on RMS setting as well, the middle guide. Echo I really like. I love all the different ways that you can play with the modulation and the pitch and like the like wonkiness of that plugin.
Yeah.
Those are ones that I reach for a lot for sure.
Echo is definitely my number one. I don't think I've produced a track since 10 came out without it. I'm a huge fan. It's actually really great for vocals too. And that was something I learned from somebody else is if you play with the ducking inside of there and you just like pull down the threshold, then it allows the vocals to be really close in your face. And it creates that depth when your vocals jump out of the way. It's nice.
Yeah, those are like my, you know, super workflowy ones. And obviously I love Simpler and I love Drum Rack. I use Drum Rack like for like vocal pop stuff all the time. Like a lot of things other than drums I use it for. And it's so powerful that way. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I've seen people build entire songs with just a drum rack and that was it.
Great.
It sounded good. Cool. That's awesome. So if you could only use, say, one Ableton Live effect and one third-party plugin in every song, that was it, what would it be?
I think it would be Echo because it's really, you have reverb too in Echo and you have and then I think like, I don't know, practically I would say like a great EQ, other third party, like the API or the Pro Q, but I think maybe like Decapitator or
yes, I love Decapitator.
Right? And I love
Decapitate everything. It's wonderful. And the Radiator, I saw you use that too, right? Yeah.
Radiator and Devil Lock Pro are like I love how they're kind of the same thing, but they all are like very unique sounding from each other. But I think Decapitator is the most useful one because you can kind of just get compression without it really being overdriven too. So like you could kind of have a compressor on, but it's also got the ability to fuck shit up.
It really does fuck shit up. It's so dirty, but it's so clean, like at the same time.
Yeah, all the different modelers are really, I usually end up on E.
Yeah, me too. E is always my go-to, A or E. And then if I'm feeling really creative, I'll go to the N for Neve.
Yes, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, those are all good choices. You have great taste.
Appreciate it. You too.
Thanks. I try. Yeah, I get to benefit by asking all of these people and guests like you on podcasts and just steal all of your tricks. It works out great.
Internet for.
So, what's in your future? Like on your calendar, what do you have coming up with projects? Like, what's the next thing for you? It's obviously a crazy time to be alive, but you know, obviously there's not a ton of live shows happening. Like, what are you working on right now?
Well, it's so funny. I feel like I spent the first few years in LA being like, I just want to be touring. I just want to be like traveling and seeing the world. And as much as I still want to be doing that, it is a little funny to me how lucky it is that I have built my business basically being like a secluded studio person. Like I still have work, luckily, thank you. And also like quarantine life is sadly not that different from my normal life because I'm also in a studio all day, alone.
It's really funny. Honestly, a lot of producers I feel that way right now. They're like, yeah, it sucks, but this isn't really super different.
It's more, it's harder to be in this capsule mentally and existentially because you're like, oh my God, like what is actually happening? And then also having to like we started this conversation, like put that into productivity, and being productive is so strange. So yeah. But I guess the like first part of this first few months, I was able to finish my EP. So I'm stoked about that because that's
awesome.
I had to put it aside because I scored a film for Hulu last fall. So originally I was going to be finishing it then.
Yeah.
And I was on this project basically August through February.
Can you talk about that for a second real quick? I'm just curious, what was that process like? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it's their Hulu and Blumhouse have a series together called Into the Dark, and it's like they're an anthology. They're like movie length, but they're packaged as episodes. It's an anthology series of in the horror space mostly, but this though it was horror, it wasn't like really scary. I don't do horror, so like I enough to work on it.
Nice.
Um, so it was about recording artists, so they needed songs and voices because the actors weren't musical. Um, so I wrote and produced and was the voice of this character. So there was like 5 songs for her. By the way, the movie is called My Valentine.
Yes. Okay. I saw a post about that, so I was gonna get there. Yeah.
And the soundtrack is out also. It's on Spotify and Apple Music. So I wrote these characters' songs, which was really fun because I got to work with the director and writer Maggie Levin and sort of develop like what these songs meant to these characters in this, the arcs of the movie and what their sound was. We kind of landed on like dark Charlie XCX, Robin, synth pop kind of stuff.
Cool.
Super fun. So I wrote 5 songs for the movie, and then I also co-scored it with Mark Hadley, who's a fantastic composer producer. He produces as Hark Madley as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was really fun because I did the songs myself, and we used a lot of the same like stems, and like we built a bunch of like wavetable synths and imported them into our scoring sessions, and we scored in Ableton too, which was the first time I've done that. And
Cool.
amazing. Like the workflow to me is actually way better than Pro Tools because this was such a synth. Like if I were recording an orchestra, probably not, but
Right.
because it was a super like electronic synth driven score, it was just like producing to picture.
That's awesome.
Super exciting. Yeah. So we kind of built this world that was really marrying the production of the songs with the sound of the score. So yeah, super rewarding. So
That's
much work.
really, yeah, I was going to say that sounds like a big undertaking, like a lot of coffee and a lot of waking up early, maybe.
Yeah, and it was really fun. I got to go to set and like work with the actors because there's multiple performance scenes where they're like singing, they're lip syncing to my voice. So I got to like kind of coach them from the sidelines. I make a little appearance in the last scene as like one of the keyboard background players. So it's really fun.
That's really cool. What a great experience. That's awesome. Is that something that you would love to continue to do and like scoring for film?
Totally. I'm actually working on a short film right now. It's like this new love that I didn't realize I had. I think because I'd always kind of like put myself into a box. Originally the box was like, I'm just a singer. I don't know enough music theory, XYZ, these things. And it's like, no, I know music theory. Okay. Oh, no, I'm a producer as well. Okay. I'm also an engineer. And so like this is a box that I had to break through for myself. And I'm like super hungry for more because working to picture is so rewarding to me. It's like a whole new depth, and it brings more to my production and writing because like knowing that influences me so much. I think that I like to write to, even if I can just like find a silent film online, I'll write a song to it because it's just like very visual with whatever sonic space I'm creating.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. I think it's definitely something it sounds like you're really passionate about. And what a huge advantage to you, because if you think about the roles as an engineer, as a producer, as a composer, those were all very different roles a decade ago, right? And now with music technology, with your home studio remotely, you can do all those things as one person.
Yeah, it's really that's really been the journey for me, is like realizing that I have the technology to record myself for composers for a commercial. Okay, well, I also have the technology to score that commercial. Why don't I just do that? So
Yeah.
It's cool because it's empowering, and I notice a lot of younger, specifically women, coming up and not having those like sort of walls put up as much because everything feels a lot more accessible and democratic. Um, there's not that like, oh, I can't be a composer because I'm not like writing out by hand this huge score with a bunch of staffs for an orchestra. It's like, well, Atticus Ross exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. No, that's really cool. That's awesome. And I'll be looking for it. Is that film out now?
My Valentine is, yep.
My Valentine. Okay. I'm going to have to, and that's on Hulu, right? For anybody listening, I'm going to go give it a watch. I'll check it out. It'd be
So
great.
fun. It's kind of silly and um, you know, all the wonderful it's like we call it like a glittery pop nightmare because it's like very based, which is really cool, but it's also like I don't know, about a lot of upsetting things that kind of also touch on like the music industry and the misogyny along with that and kind of the way
Yeah.
that have been treated historically. So uh,
Hmm.
it's a whole thing, but it's a very fun watch because it's full of music and
Awesome.
live scenes and things like that. So
Yeah. I have no doubt that you crushed it, and I'm sure it's great, and I'm going to go check it out very soon. But yeah, no, totally. And I think it's really cool. I love seeing female producers who are really hella talented, like yourself, who are entering all these different roles as an engineer, as a producer. I think the industry needs more of that with female roles and being able to enter the music industry and to disrupt it in a lot of ways. So thank you for taking your time to join the podcast. This has been super fun. Where can people follow you? Where's the best place to stay connected with you?
I would say I'm most active on Instagram. So it's Dresage Music, Dresage Music.
Mhm.
That's also my handle on Twitter and on TikTok, which I've started making like
I
since.
saw that. Yeah. Watch out for those Chinese. They're going to come get you.
I know. I have nothing to hide. I'm not interesting. So
Right. That's honestly probably how a lot of people feel. And it's fine. I still have TikTok, so I don't really care. That's cool.
TikTok is interesting. It's mostly concerning, I think, for like I heard it was like kids who are like the children of ambassadors or like live in consulates abroad and like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
I'm also releasing a new EP very soon. It'll be on Spotify and all those things. Uh,
Yes. And when is that dropping officially?
I think that the first song will probably come out like September, October.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see a specific date online, so I was going to ask. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, it'll be coming out. So and I mean, who knows what's gonna. It's interesting to like look at releasing and then also know that like the craziest election of our lifetime is also happening in the fall. So
Yeah. It's that nice balance of like staying aware and like fighting for justice these days, but also sometimes you got to give yourself a little mental break and stay inspired and be able to have those creative juices flowing and sharing things that are going to help other people do the same. All right, stay healthy and safe. And yeah, everybody listening, check out the links in the show notes for all of the links that we just listened to with Keeley. Producer name is Dresage. Everybody check her out. It's good stuff. And thanks for joining the podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I'll see you later. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the podcast once again. If you would like to join the private Facebook group, it used to only be open to subscribing members on my Ableton training website, liveproducersonline.com. I'm opening up the Facebook group now, so I'd love for you guys to be part of it. If you want to jump in, just request to join. Just go to Facebook and search Live Producers Online Members and look for the private group and request to join. I'd be happy to have you in there. I'm going to be sharing more weekly tips and hacks from Ableton Live devices to marketing your music tips and all kinds of stuff. Come hang out with me and other producers in the community. Also, don't forget about that mixing cheat sheet that I'm giving away. So go to liveproducersonline.com/mixing cheat sheet. Download it for free and learn some new awesome stuff to help boost the quality of your tracks. Much love, everybody. Go check out Dresage's links in the show notes, and I'll see you guys next time. Also, before I forget, if you want to purchase Ableton Live 10 Standard or Suite, then make sure you go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton, and I can hook you up with the best deal you will find. So yeah, much love. Have a great week. Talk to you guys later.